G20 financial watchdog pushes for regulation reform. The Financial Stability Board, FSB, has outlined its 2026 work plan, emphasizing more aligned global regulations around stablecoins, monitoring rising private credit markets, and addressing risks tied to AI-linked asset bubbles. Modernizing regulations, aligning rules around stablecoins, and keeping tabs on ballooning debt and private credit markets are next year's top priorities, global financial regulators said on Wednesday. The Financial Stability Board, which coordinates financial rules for the group of 20 economies, G20, said its work program for 2026, a year when Donald Trump's U.S. government, which is keen on easing regulations, will take over as G20 chair. FSB head, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey, said the watchdog remained committed to closely scrutinizing vulnerabilities in the global financial market and ensuring the implementation of its recommendations. A two-day plenary of FSB members in Saudi Arabia, ahead of the weekend's meeting of G20 leaders in South Africa, looked at how a number of top countries have now started, or are planning to, revamp regulations after the years of toughening rules. The plenary meeting of FSB members agreed that the FSB should examine these initiatives to determine where it can support alignment of approaches globally, the FSB said. Another priority for next year will be the boom in private credit markets. FSB members discussed their rapid growth, complexity, relative lack of transparency, and that growing interlinkages to the rest of the financial system require careful monitoring. Its options for next year include further assessment of the possible vulnerabilities posed by the boom and improving data that regulators have access to. The plenary also called for continued close monitoring of crypto assets and stablecoins and their impact on the broader financial system. Stablecoins raise a number of vulnerabilities, including bank-run risk and regulatory challenges associated with multi-jurisdiction issuers, the FSB's readout of its meeting said. COP30, Guterres and Lula push for breakthrough. At the UN climate talks in Brazil, COP30, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Brazilian President Lula da Silva have personally stepped in to push negotiators to reach a deal on key issues like climate finance, transparency, and fossil fuel phase-out. Belém, Brazil, AP, two global power players pushed negotiators on Wednesday to find compromises at United Nations climate talks in Brazil's Belém, where a self-imposed deadline is rushing up fast. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva arrived at the COP30 talks to take a hand. Lula's tentative schedule included meetings with negotiators for the European Union, emerging nations in Latin America, the Middle East and Asia, and hard-hit small island nations. The arrival of President Lula and Antonio Guterres is hugely significant and suggests the hosts think we should have some kind of deal passed today, said Mohamed Adaw of the Kenyan environmental organization PowerShift Africa. You don't generally have the president coming into the talks midway through the second week without something to show for it. Raising the possibility of a historic outcome, Greenpeace Brazil Executive Director Carolina Pasquale said the COP is nearing the endgame and the joint arrival of both Lula and Guterres gives a clear political signal that they mean business. 80-plus countries back a fossil fuel phase-out roadmap. More than 80 nations at COP30 are demanding a clear roadmap to phase out fossil fuels, calling for it to become a central component of the summit's final political agreement.